Good evening. I know the title disturbed you. That's intentional, because it must. We live in a world today that is not designed to care. It's designed to function, and it will only respond to those who understand and engage with purpose. Let me tell you something that religion may not teach you. Nobody cares about you until you start walking in your purpose. Now, I didn't say you aren't loved. You are loved. But love is not the same as relevance. The people who make a difference in the world are not the ones who begged for attention, they are the ones who discovered their assignment. You must realize you were sent to earth with a purpose, a divine deposit, a heavenly assignment. But here's the tragedy: if you never deploy what God has deposited, the world will not care that you were even here. That's why cemeteries are the richest places on earth: buried potential, unwritten books. Unsung songs, unsolved problems, all because someone waited for sympathy instead of walking in destiny. Nobody cares about your tears until you turn them into strategy. Heaven doesn't respond to emotion, it responds to faith. God doesn't bless pity, He blesses purpose. Let me ask you a hard question. What problem are you solving? Because if you're not solving anything, you're not needed. That sounds harsh, but it's true. The only reason Joseph became prime minister in Egypt was because he interpreted a dream. David was called to the palace not because he looked good, but because he could slay giants. Daniel was elevated because he could interpret mysteries. If they had stayed home crying about their lives, the world would have passed them by. The moment you activate your gift, people will care. Opportunities will care. Systems will care. The world will start making room for you. Why? Because your value is no longer potential, it has become impact. The world responds to contribution, not intention. That truth, though uncomfortable, separates those who make history from those who merely watch it unfold. You see, there are many people walking the earth today with good hearts, good dreams, good intentions, and good desires. They want to do right. They want to help people. They want to be successful. They want to make a difference. But unfortunately, the world is not designed to reward what you intended to do. It only rewards what you actually do. You can have the most compassionate thoughts, the deepest desire to change your family, your community, your generation. But if you never convert those thoughts into tangible action, if you never deliver something of value, you remain invisible. The world is full of dreamers who never execute, and that's why it's still full of problems. Your intention may comfort you, but it won't feed the hungry, it won't educate the poor, it won't transform society, and it won't open doors. Intention is internal, contribution is external, and only external results shift how people respond to you. That's why purpose must be expressed, not just believed in. A gift unopened serves no one. The treasure buried inside of you has no impact until it is released, refined, and offered to others. In fact, your very significance is tied to how well you manage and multiply what you've been given. You were not born to survive, you were born to serve, and your service is what qualifies you to be remembered. It's your contribution, not your mere existence, that causes others to care. Think of the people who are celebrated, respected, followed, and listened to. What do they have in common? They have contributed something. It may be knowledge, a skill, an invention, a strategy, a solution, a sound, or even a structure. They took what they had and transformed it into something others needed. That's what made them necessary. Nobody celebrates an idea that never became action. Nobody follows a vision that never turned into a mission. Good thoughts are not enough. The graveyard is full of people who had good thoughts, but the world only remembers those who did something with them. You must understand this foundational principle. People are not drawn to intention, they are drawn to value. People seek out usefulness. That's why companies pay salaries. That's why nations seek alliances. That's why communities build around centers of value. If you are not offering value, you are ignored. Not because people are cruel, but because life is designed to move in the direction of contribution. If a tree stops bearing fruit, it is cut down, not because anyone hates the tree, but because it no longer serves a purpose. The same is true for your potential. As long as it stays hidden in your head, or buried under fear, insecurity, or laziness. The world has no obligation to respond to you. Favor, opportunity, support, these things are attracted to motion. You have to convert your potential into productivity. You have to become known for something that solves a problem. That's when people start noticing you, supporting you, investing in you, not because they suddenly became kinder, but because you became useful. Even God himself operates on this principle. In the parable of the talents, the servant who buried his gift was called wicked, not because he stole, not because he killed, not because he lied, but because he did nothing with what he was given. The master wasn't moved by his excuses or intentions. He was judged based on his lack of contribution. That should tell you something profound. Heaven and earth both operate on return, not on desire. Self-pity is not a strategy. It may feel like comfort in the moment. It may seem like a natural response to pain, disappointment, rejection, or failure, but it is not a sustainable path forward. Self-pity convinces you that the world owes you something because of what you've been through. It creates an illusion that sitting in your sorrow will somehow attract support, sympathy, or even opportunity. But in reality, the longer you remain in a place of self-pity, the further you drift from the place of purpose. Life is not fair. That's a truth most people learn early but spend their entire lives resisting. People will wrong you. Systems may overlook you. Circumstances might crush you. But the world is not built to stop and grieve with every broken individual. It's designed to move, and if you don't move with it, you get left behind. Self-pity becomes the anchor that ties you to your pain. It keeps you stuck in a loop of emotional recycling where nothing new grows. Growth demands that you get up. It demands that you push through, and it demands that you stop rehearsing what happened and start responding to what's possible. You were not created to live at the mercy of how others treat you. You were given dominion, which means you have the ability to govern your own decisions, attitude, and responses, no matter what others have done to you. The problem with self-pity is that it convinces you to surrender that authority. It tells you there's nothing you can do. It paralyzes your creativity. It clouds your perspective. It shrinks your capacity. And the most dangerous thing it does is convince you that you are helpless, when in fact you are powerful. Every great person in history had a reason to wallow. Some were betrayed, others abused, many were oppressed or impoverished. But at some point they made a decision. They decided not to let what happened to them define what could happen through them. They understood that pain was not a passport to sympathy. It was a classroom for transformation. They used their wounds as wisdom. They turned their rejection into redirection, and that is what made them great. Self-pity is deceptive because it feels honest. It feels like you're just being real about how hard things are. But feelings, while valid, were never meant to be your leaders. They were meant to be indicators, not directors. You feel sorrow, but you decide whether to stay in sorrow. You feel broken, but you choose whether to heal. Emotion is human, but transformation is intentional, and strategy is what bridges the gap between where you are and where you were designed to be. Let's be clear, no one is coming to rescue you. No one is waking up thinking about how to fix your life. Waiting for someone to see your pain and respond with a solution is like waiting for the wind to stop blowing before you raise your sails. You must build your strategy in the storm. Self-pity delays that process because it teaches you to wait instead of work. It puts your hope in someone else's hands, and that is always a dangerous place to be. True strength is not in how loud you cry, it's in how long you endure, not because you're numb to pain, but because you've chosen purpose over paralysis. When you live in self-pity, you become a magnet for people who enable your stagnation, not your growth. Misery attracts company, not counsel. You begin to find comfort in conversations that keep you rehearsing your pain rather than planning your progress. That's why you must guard your circle, protect your mindset, and discipline your emotions. You were never called to build your identity around what hurt you. You are called to build your future based on what you carry inside you. Your value is hidden in your impact, not in your appearance, not in your emotions, not in your background, and not even in your potential. The world doesn't recognize what you're capable of. It recognizes what you've done with what you're capable of. Until your gift begins to serve others, it remains invisible. This is why so many talented, intelligent, gifted individuals live in frustration. They know they have something, but the world doesn't respond to what's hidden. The world only responds to what is revealed and useful. Impact is the manifestation of purpose. It is the evidence that you have taken what you were born with, refined it, and applied it in a way that makes a difference. You don't need to impress people with titles or appearances if you have results. You don't need to beg for affirmation if you have fruit. People may not understand your journey, but they will respect your contribution. The impact you make is what introduces you, defines you, and elevates you. Think about the names that history remembers. Those who changed the world, those who shifted industries, those who transformed their communities. None of them are remembered for what they were going to do. They are remembered for what they actually did. Their names are not etched into history because of their dreams, it's because of their deeds. The gift they carried became a gift they gave, and in that giving they became valuable. You have something inside you that was designed to solve a problem. It may be a skill, a message, an idea, a vision, a solution, or even an experience. But as long as it stays inside you, it cannot help anyone. You cannot claim value simply because you exist. Existence is not the same as effectiveness. You must extract the treasure within you and turn it into something tangible, something that can be seen, touched, felt, or experienced by others. This is how you create impact, and it is this impact that becomes the measure of your value to the world. People are not ignoring you because you lack value. They're ignoring you because they haven't experienced your value yet. The moment you start solving problems, meeting needs, lifting burdens, inspiring minds, or changing atmospheres, people will begin to recognize your presence. You won't have to advertise yourself. Fruit attracts attention all by itself. When a tree bears fruit, people come from everywhere, not to admire the tree, but to partake of its fruit. Likewise, when your life bears fruit, your impact becomes the magnet that draws others in. This is why you must stop hiding behind excuses. Stop waiting for permission. Stop underestimating what you carry. The world is not waiting for another speech about your dreams. It is waiting for the manifestation of your solutions. It is waiting for your action. Your value is not in the opinions others have about you. It is in the influence you have on them. Influence doesn't come from intention. It comes from demonstration. You must move beyond theory and into practice. Even God placed Adam in a garden and expected him to work. Dominion was tied to responsibility. Impact began the moment Adam started cultivating what he was given. The same principle applies to you. Your value is not in being in the garden. It's in what you do with the garden. What are you cultivating? What are you building? What are you stewarding? What are you transforming? Your environment will not validate you until you begin to impact it. The measure of your usefulness determines your visibility. That's why you cannot afford to remain passive. The more you contribute, the more the world will care, because your worth is no longer potential energy. It has become kinetic. It has moved something. It has shifted something. It has touched something. And once your impact touches others, your value becomes undeniable. Even God responds to faith, not tears. That statement confronts a very popular but misleading belief, that the depth of our emotion automatically moves the hand of God. While emotion is real and tears are valid expressions of human pain, they are not substitutes for action. They are not the currency of heaven. If tears alone had power to transform circumstances, then every broken-hearted person would be victorious. But the reality is that what moves God is not how much we cry. It's how much we believe. Throughout Scripture, we see people in desperate conditions, people with real suffering, real affliction, and real struggles. But the difference between those who were changed and those who remained stuck was not their level of pain, but their level of faith. The woman with the issue of blood was not healed because she cried about her condition. She had likely wept for years. She was healed because she acted on her belief that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, she would be made whole. Her faith moved her feet, and that movement brought her into a miracle. Tears may release what's in your heart, but faith releases what's in God's hand. Tears express emotion. Faith expresses confidence in divine principles. God is not emotional in his governance. He is principled. He operates by laws that he himself established. One of those laws is that faith is the key to access. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. That means it is not your desperation, your sorrow, or your struggle that pleases him. It's your trust. Faith says, even though I am hurting, I believe you are still good. Faith says, even though I see no evidence, I choose to act on your word. Faith says, I will move forward even when I feel like breaking down. The danger of relying on tears is that it creates a passive relationship with life and with God. It says, I am waiting for someone to feel sorry for me and come to my rescue. But faith is active. Faith says, I will dig again, I will try again, I will build again. Faith doesn't wait for pity, it produces results. It doesn't say, look at me, I'm suffering. It says, watch me, I'm rising. This is why many people stay in cycles of frustration. They believe that their pain justifies their breakthrough. But pain without faith is powerless. There is a difference between mourning and moving. Mourning is necessary, but it was never meant to be permanent. Faith must eventually rise from the ashes of loss. Even David, when his child died, got up, washed himself, worshipped, and ate. Not because he was no longer grieving, but because he understood the time for weeping had passed. He could not change what happened, but he could still change what came next. That is what faith does. It reclaims control over the future even when the past cannot be altered. In the natural world, tears may earn sympathy, but in the spiritual realm, faith is what brings results. Heaven does not respond to emotional manipulation. It responds to spiritual alignment. When you align your actions with God's principles, that's when doors open. That's when miracles happen. That's when favor finds you. God doesn't reward sadness, he rewards obedience. He doesn't move because you feel low, he moves because you stand on his promises. Faith is not denial of reality, it's the refusal to be ruled by it. Faith acknowledges the pain but chooses not to be paralyzed by it. Faith hears the diagnosis but still believes in healing. Faith sees the bank account but still moves forward in generosity. It's not a feeling. It's a decision, and that decision is what heaven honors. Faith speaks when tears are silent. Faith acts when emotions are drained. Faith keeps walking when everything says give up. The grave is full of people who waited for sympathy. It is filled with men and women who carried dreams, visions, ideas, inventions, solutions, and wisdom that were never seen, never heard, and never experienced because they waited for someone to care enough to help them start. They waited for the perfect moment, the right relationship, the encouraging voice, the recognition, the apology, the support, the validation, and time, indifferent to their expectations, passed by. Eventually their time ran out and the world was deprived of what they were meant to give. Sympathy is not a catalyst for destiny. Waiting for someone to feel sorry for you is a silent killer of potential. It creates a mindset of dependence, where progress is postponed until someone notices your pain. But the truth is, many people live and die unnoticed, not because they were unworthy, but because they never took initiative. They kept looking around, hoping that someone else would start the process for them. But purpose was never designed to be activated externally. It comes from within. No one can live your assignment for you. No one can fulfill your calling. No one can believe on your behalf. And no one will cry you into your future. The graveyard testifies of people who misunderstood the urgency of time. They assumed there would always be another day, another opportunity, another chance to begin. They underestimated the power of small, consistent action. They believed the lie that conditions must be perfect before obedience is required, and while they waited, life moved on. Purpose doesn't wait for convenience, it doesn't wait for applause, it doesn't wait for ideal circumstances. It waits for movement, and the moment you move, even in weakness, purpose begins to flow. There are people buried in silence because they feared rejection. They assumed their value would be discovered without expression. But expression is what exposes value. If you hide your gift, the world cannot find it. If you bury your voice, the world cannot hear it. Waiting for someone to ask you to speak, to lead, to write, to build, to innovate, is a dangerous gamble with time. The truth is, the world rarely invites you to step into your calling. You must enter it with boldness, knowing that your presence is justified by your assignment, not by others' permission. Sympathy may comfort emotions, but it cannot complete assignments. It soothes the soul but does nothing for your impact, and the longer you wait for it, the less responsibility you take. Destiny demands that you move forward even when you are ignored, misunderstood, or overlooked. Some of the most impactful people in history were never initially welcomed. They had to knock down doors, endure criticism, and persist through isolation. They were not carried by sympathy, they were carried by vision. They understood that waiting to be noticed is a trap. You must notice yourself, you must value yourself, you must lead yourself. The grave holds the music that was never sung, the books that were never written, the businesses that were never started, the ministries that never launched, the communities that were never changed, not because there was no capacity, but because there was no courage. Many of those people had time, talent, and treasure, but they lacked the conviction to act without support. And so they lived in quiet frustration, hoping for rescue instead of becoming their own answer. No one is coming to rescue your vision. No one is required to see your value before you express it. Sympathy might come or it might not. But purpose is waiting, and it does not apologize for being demanding. You are the steward of what you've been given. You are the one who must protect, cultivate, and release it. The alternative is tragic, to leave the earth full of everything you were meant to give away. Success attracts attention, not complaints. This is a principle that applies in every dimension of life, whether personal, professional, spiritual, or societal. People are naturally drawn to outcomes, not outbursts. The world is not structured to reward frustration. It is designed to respond to function. If you want to be heard, produce something worth hearing. If you want to be seen, build something worth seeing. Visibility comes as a byproduct of productivity. It is not noise that opens doors. It is results. Many spend their lives complaining about what they don't have, what others didn't do, and what the system failed to provide. But complaining, no matter how justified, does not generate movement. It may gain temporary attention, but it rarely produces lasting respect. People may listen out of politeness or guilt, but they follow results. They support what works, they invest in what grows, they celebrate what delivers. You don't change your life by convincing others to feel sorry for you. You change your life by becoming effective. Success doesn't need to announce itself, it speaks through fruit. When you become successful in what you were designed to do, you no longer have to beg for recognition. People will begin to notice, not because they suddenly care more about you, but because they care about what you carry. This is the paradox of success. The very people who once ignored you begin to take interest the moment you become valuable. That is not hypocrisy. It is how life operates. Value magnetizes attention. Complaining creates stagnation because it focuses energy on problems without producing solutions. It reinforces a victim mindset. It convinces you that you are powerless, and as a result, you spend more time rehearsing limitations than developing capacity. But the moment you shift from complaining to creating, you reclaim your power. Instead of waiting for someone to understand your pain, you begin to transform your pain into purpose. That transformation is what draws the world to you, not your suffering, but your strength. The marketplace doesn't pay for frustration. It pays for solutions. Emotion is not a product. People don't pay for how you feel, they pay for what you deliver. So while others may spend time broadcasting their anger, those who are building, solving, and producing will continue to rise. Their focus is not on how unfair the world is. Their focus is on how to master their craft, multiply their impact, and manage their opportunity. And in doing so, they earn influence. Success also silences critics. It has a way of making people reconsider their opinions. When you begin to rise, when you begin to break limits, when you begin to move in excellence, even those who once doubted you will have to acknowledge what you've become. They may not like you, but they cannot ignore your results. Complaints invite pity, but success demands respect. You don't need everyone to like you. You just need to become so fruitful that your absence would be a problem. This is why you must discipline your mind. Don't spend your energy explaining why you're behind. Invest that energy in building something ahead. Let your work speak. Let your life become evidence of what happens when someone refuses to settle. Complaining might feel good for a moment, but building will bless you for a lifetime. The greatest revenge against injustice is not bitterness, it's excellence. The best way to silence doubt is not explanation, it's execution. You must shift your mindset from reaction to creation. What you build will outlive what you complain about. What you produce will be remembered long after your frustrations are forgotten. And as you rise in impact, those who once overlooked you will find themselves drawn not to your story of struggle, but to the fruit of your success. You were not born to be pitied, you were born to be impactful. Life does not reward emotion, it rewards intention. The world doesn't care how much potential you carry until you convert it into contribution, and no one is obligated to believe in your future more than you are. The harsh truth is this: nobody truly cares about you until you produce something that makes them care. That is not cruelty, that is clarity. Self-pity is not your portion. Waiting for others to feel sorry for you is a delay tactic in disguise. The grave is full of those who died full of dreams and empty of discipline. The difference between obscurity and legacy is not in how much you suffered, but in how much you produced. If you want to be remembered, give the world something it cannot ignore. Stop waiting for rescue, stop waiting for validation, stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign, you are the answer to a problem, you are the solution someone is praying for, but the world cannot experience what you keep hidden. Your gift must be cultivated, expressed, and released. That's when it becomes valuable, that's when your name begins to matter. Not because people love you, but because they need what you carry. Success is your responsibility. Faith is your strategy. Impact is your evidence. You will be measured not by what you felt, but by what you finished. So decide today, will you live for sympathy, or will you rise in purpose? Will you be another buried potential, or will you be a living legacy? The choice is not theirs, it's yours.